Hey Nick, how's the coffee?
Wait a minute. That is a damn fine cup of coffee. I've had a lot of cups of coffee in my time. It's one of the best.
That reminds me, we should talk about David Lynch.
Totally should.
Who calls me from out of the pit?
Oh yeah. Totally.
Alright, let's see if it's as bad as I remember. Yeah. It's beer.
Yeah.
I'm Paul,
I'm Mark.
I'm Mike,
I'm Nick.
and this is the Return to the Sun of the Show. This week we're gonna talk about we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the movies and career of David Lynch. So we thought what we'd do is we would do like our top 5 David Lynch movies or productions, because the man was all over the place, writing, directing, acting,
Comic strip.
comic strip. So rather than just limit it to movies, we're gonna call them productions.
He was just such an interesting dude. I mean, I'm like, and that's putting it mildly. About how he one of my favorite things about him was how he did his own thing, but he kind of loved and hated Hollywood.
Mhm.
And but yeah, so he really did his own thing. And man, like as I heard it put in one of many tributes to him, like his name became an adjective. Like
Mhm.
you said, like this is so Lynchian.
Yeah.
Everyone knows what you mean.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would describe him as an American original.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there was nobody like him, and nobody was making movies like him either.
Yeah. That's for sure. Yeah.
The other word I'd use to describe him is ineffable.
Oh.
When the horizon's at the bottom, it's interesting. When the horizon's at the top, it's interesting. When the horizon's in the middle, it's boring as shit.
All right, so without further ado, you want to launch into our top 5?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
My number 5 is Dune. Which I it's amazing that he got that movie
Mhm.
like just at all, like that he was, he got picked to direct that. And just you put him together with H.R. Giger and just all of the weird stuff that's in that film, and yet he pulls up a sci-fi, a space opera,
Mhm.
but there's all this other oddball stuff in it. And he gets Sting to star in this movie.
Yeah.
And there's all this wild stuff, and it's so, and the opening, exposition, you're already going, okay, what is happening? I have no idea what you even just told me, and nothing makes sense. But you just love it. I mean, yes, I mean, even with all of that, I remember seeing that at the theater, thinking this is one of the wildest things I've ever seen.
Well,
That was the first Lynch film I ever saw.
Oh.
And
well, one of the benefits of that long intro is you get to look at Virginia Madsen up close.
that is also true. That's very true. Yes.
Which I believe that was added later. That wasn't part of
I think you're right.
the original, because
They had to figure out how to explain what the hell was going on.
Yeah. The studio demanded that to be added. So yeah, it's one of the versions of that movie.
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. That's another thing. There's so many
Yeah,
versions.
it's like
of
Blade
it.
Runner.
I was going to say, like, this the Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my number 5.
Okay.
Well, my number 5, and I don't know, I love David Lynch. There's a lot of his stuff that I haven't watched in a long time.
Mhm.
So this may not actually be my number 5 favorite David Lynch thing, but it's so weird. I just have to mention it. David Lynch Theater. It's a YouTube channel,
Mhm.
and I just looked at it. There's like 800 episodes
Yeah.
every single day for however long he did this, it was the number of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And he had this little container, and he'd pull a ping pong ball out, and it would be like number 8. And so the number of the day is 8. And that was it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I don't know what this means, but
He used to do. He even did like the weather
Yeah, weather.
reports,
yeah,
which I just found out about today.
People would
Actually,
tune in for that, just for that.
yeah, yeah. The guy was nuts.
Yeah.
I loved.
Okay. I guess I'll do my honorable mention now because
No, you can-
it should have made the top 5, but it's difficult.
Okay.
So my honorable mention would be the fact that he directed and came up with the video for Chris Isaac's Wicked Game.
Oh yeah.
Holy cow.
Which captures the total meaning and of that song that most people misinterpret. How many times did we sit in a bar
Yep.
watching a young couple dance to Wicked Game? Like,
How many weddings did
yeah,
you attend?
yeah,
That was their
yes.
first dance.
Yes. Did you not listen to the lyrics? Did you not watch the video? But I saw Chris Isaac did a tribute to him this morning,
Mhm.
saying that had it not been for Lynch, he wouldn't be
Yeah.
where he's at. Lynch made his whole career.
Well, he had like Silvertone, I think, before.
Yeah, he did.
And,
Yeah.
and nobody really. I mean,
Yeah, and he had
we
the, and he had
listened
the,
to it,
and he had the
obviously,
self-titled Green album.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
nothing had hit like until he got to Heart Shaped World because
Mhm.
of David Lynch. So
And that video was probably the most normal thing Lynch ever directed.
yes.
Yeah,
It's a linear story.
Yeah. But I have to give that. I mean, Kyle MacLachlan, Dune of Dune fame, said the same thing this morning.
Oh, yeah.
That he wouldn't be where he is without Lynch.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so that's my honorable mention. My almost made number 5.
Mhm.
My number 5, because I'm doing mine in order of what I've watched the most,
Mhm.
rather than, or what I keep going back to, rather than his greatest works. So for me, it's Twin Peaks because I haven't watched it so long. So, but I mean, I remember watching Twin Peaks with my mom
Mhm.
when it first came out, and it was just totally out of left field.
Yeah.
But we loved it. I mean, season 1 more than what came after, but yeah, that was just it was the lost of its time. It was
Mhm.
she and I watched a lot of drama shows together, but that one I had no idea what was going on, but I loved it. And
Mhm.
so but I haven't watched in a long, long time. I probably should, given the fact that he did the sequel season 3, which I never did watch,
Same,
so
but
I haven't watched it
it's on
yet.
my list,
So,
yeah.
but yeah, so that's the only reason why it's at number 5. My guess is if I would rewatch it, it'd be much higher.
Mhm.
But since I haven't watched it since I was a kid,
Well, it was
I'll put it.
it was one of those shows that like when people were just doing like episodic TV,
Yeah,
it was an ongoing storyline.
yeah.
Mhm.
I mean,
Which
could you
was-
imagine it now with the internet and all the videos people would be doing every
Yeah.
week that
Right.
came out?
Every
I mean,
frame,
Yeah.
it'd be yeah,
every frame
yeah.
would be
Oh,
have a video on
dissected.
it.
Yeah. So
yeah. I mean, it was compared to a soap opera at the time because
Yeah.
I mean, most shows weren't like that.
no, no.
Right.
And I kind of went into it thinking it would be like, or what Northern Exposure ended up being, but it was way beyond.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
It was
yeah.
like if Northern Exposure had smoked crack,
Mhm.
and
A
so,
lot.
and then dropped acid, and,
Yeah.
then invited ghosts in. So but yeah, that's my number 5.
Well, my number 5 is Lost Highway.
Yeah,
And it's wrong why I like it so much.
Mhm.
The thing is, I didn't like it when we first because we rented it.
did.
I didn't like it because to me it was like one of those loop kind of movies,
Mhm.
those like Owl Creek Bridge type stories.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big fan of those, but I've watched it a couple times since. The soundtrack is killer. It's got Robert Loggia in it,
Yeah,
which is always a bonus for me. But what gets me with this movie, the thing that I always remember, and the reason why I like it, and why it's number 5, and the reason why it's wrong, Robert Blake.
Oh.
That's the stuff I remember the most, is just how creepy and weird he is in that movie.
Yeah.
And then we find out later on.
Right.
yeah. It wasn't much of an actor.
No,
Right?
no.
It was easy for him to
Not
play
at
that
all.
role.
Yeah. It's like watching In Cold Blood. You watch In Cold Blood when he was young,
Yeah.
and it's like he plays such a tortured person. and I'm like, method actor.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, that's why it's number 5.
Yeah, that would have made my top 5, but just based on the soundtrack alone. But for me, it's the soundtrack that I remember more than anything other than the movie. But yeah, the soundtrack is fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
That revived Bowie's career.
My number 4 is Lynch's 2013 album, The Big Dream.
Oh, look at you.
I heard that I walked into a record store, I think it was in Nashville, and they were playing it, and I knew nothing about Lynch's music at all. And they're playing this album. I thought, what in the world is this? It was this weird, kind of like somewhat psychedelic, somewhat rockabilly, and other stuff I couldn't quite figure out. What in the world? So I asked, and they went, it's David Lynch's album, and I'm like, well, okay, I gotta hear this thing. And it's so wild. I mean, there's like storytelling in it. The production is really weird because I can't remember the guy's name who he worked with who did most of the instrumentation, but it has this really cool, like there's a song in there about a family out in like the heart of America during the Depression, like, and the dad gets really depressed. And there's another song about a Star Dream Girl that I think was one of the singles, and like beautiful girls. There's even a song where at the end he mockingly tells the producers, last thing he says is, no, I don't drink that foreign beer. So like there's some self-referential stuff in there. It's a really good record. That's one of my favorite records of that year. So yeah, that's what I'm going with.
Great.
He did a jazz album with like the musical composer for a lot of his movies, I guess.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I haven't heard it, but I'm like, I'm gonna look into it.
Well,
honestly.
Was that Angelo
Badalamenti?
Yeah.
So then while we're on that subject, man, like their collaborations, holy cow. Like, man, like you talk about two people who were just like they were meant to work together. Holy mackerel.
Yeah.
I didn't really even know that Lynch did music and stuff. I didn't know about the comic strip. You're gonna have to look that up.
It ran for a long time.
Oh.
It was called the angriest dog in the world, I believe. Yeah.
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 Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, my number 4 is Wild at Heart.
Great choice.
And it's been a while since I've seen it, but it's just really interesting. I remember a lot of references to Wizard of Oz in it. Of course, that Nicolas Cage is really good in it. Unlike some of his other.
Yeah.
Well, it's,
but
my thing is like I tell my kids about like because they'll get on me about like, how I don't like the majority of Nicolas Cage's movies, but the ones I do like I really love, and they can't figure out why. I'm like, it's because a good director can turn a bad actor into a good actor.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah,
but I think for Nicolas Cage, he's a good actor. He needs paychecks, and so I don't think he tries that hard in those movies, and doesn't really need to.
The majority of them between like the late '80s and like the past 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's true about a director. And I mean, look at what
Shaq.
Yeah.
Just look at what Stanley Kubrick was able to do with in The Shining with people like Scatman Crothers. I mean, not that he's was a bad actor, but I mean, he was phenomenal in that movie.
Yeah.
I heard a clip of an interview with Lynch, and he talked about how he never got to meet Kubrick, but he heard that Kubrick loved Eraserhead. And that he's like, I could have just died right then.
Yeah, that's funny. Plus, I know this is a weird thing to bring up, but it has a favorite obscure actress of mine by the name of Charlie Spradlin.
Oh, wow.
She was in a lot of the Full Moon movies and stuff. But yeah, she's the one where he reaches over and like grab. Yeah, and she turns around and I guess they proceed to have relations.
Number 4 for me is Blue Velvet. Interesting. So and again, because I've only seen it maybe 3 times. I know you and I watched it together once many many years ago. I think that was my first time seeing it.
I've watched it a couple times since then.
Yeah. And so what's odd about it is I have two views of it now. So uh, my fiance Diana and I watched it a couple years ago, and I'm sitting there the whole time going, "This isn't as weird as I remember it. It's not as weird as I remember it. It's not as weird as I remember it." And that's because everyone else has stolen off Blue Velvet for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And so, but I know deep in my heart how batshit crazy that movie was when we first saw it. And just the acting in the movie and the pauses and I mean, Kyle MacLachlan is fantastic. And,
Well, and the way, just how menacing Dennis Hopper is.
Yeah,
He's a little guy, and he's
Yeah.
freaking terrifying.
Yeah,
in
he
that
is.
movie.
He is. Yeah, and that he makes the movie. I mean, it really,
Yeah.
and so many good lines in that movie, and it's just it's surreal, but is more straightforward than some of the than say like a Lost Highway. And so, but yeah, it was really odd that I'm sitting there going, we've been so overexposed now to people imitating Lynch that I forgot. I got to keep reminding myself, no, he did this first. It's all first.
Lynchian.
It was the Lynchian, yes. I was trying to be Lynch, yes. And so, but yeah, so Blue Velvet would be my number 4.
Cool. Well, my number 4 is the 2002 short film Rabbits. It's the craziest fever dream I've ever seen. It's a nightmare sitcom that takes place in this little living room apart of these 3 rabbits, and they're humans wearing rabbit suits, and they got these the big Frank from Donnie Darko, and it's this disjointed weird movie. It's like 40 minutes long. You can see it on YouTube. He launched it, I guess, as shorts on his website back in the day when people did that. But it all gets it's all compiled into one story, and it's shot really dingy and kind of gross looking. And the dialogue between the 3 rabbits is like they wrote every line of dialogue down on a separate piece of paper, and then just randomly pulled it out of a hat and wrote it out as for people to say. So like if you watch it enough times, you can kind of make sense about what the hell's going on. But I don't think anything is actually supposed to make sense in it, because he was making these things like the number is 8, it's whatever he felt like doing that day. But it's creepy as hell. It's and hilarious at the same time.
Heal someone.
My number 3 is Blue Velvet.
Yeah.
And just because the things you brought up, how it's a film noir in some ways.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And he might have done some of this in Eraserhead, but it definitely got people thinking about his themes of like what's behind the surface of suburbia, which he later, of course, went in Twin Peaks. Was all over that.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, just the performances in it are just amazing. And there's other fun stuff I like in it, like you said, how crazy intimidating Dennis Hopper is in it. But there's some really interesting acting choices he makes. And probably my favorite is the scene where Kyle MacLachlan punches him in the car, and you think he's doomed, and Frank just goes "Wah!" And he's like, what is happening? He doesn't kill him. He just drags him out of the car. He's like, "Yeah." And he's like, how dare you? I can't believe this. And so it's this kind of a bit of a flip. And I was like, man, that's such a cool choice. But yeah, it's just so, it's just like you said, everything that came after it was oh man, this is just, we got to make a movie like this now.
Correct.
So yeah, that's my number 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my number 3 is Dune.
Okay.
And I remember seeing it in the theater, and everybody was acting like it was supposed to be really hard to understand, but they even passed out little booklets that had definitions of various terms and
I
stuff.
forgot about that. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't find it hard to understand. I thought it was interesting. I liked it. I had never read the book. My favorite part was probably those shields that they had that made him look like Gumby, kind of.
Yeah.
Yes.
By
That
the
was-
Atreides done it.
I remember the look of it being really interesting.
Oh, one of like now kind of like a, and there's some memes about it. Of like
Yeah.
one of the, I think most fun details is the shot of Patrick Stewart holding a pug and calling men into battle.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is this? But like that's because like I love that.
Yeah.
Just like those weird little touches. Man, it's great.
I'll also pick Dune as number 3. And when I saw the movie, I hadn't read the book yet, and then I went in college and had to read the book in college, and went back and watched the movie. And granted, I think even Lynch wrote the movie off at one time. He didn't even want his name attached to it. Did he have his name changed to that Hollywood director name? I don't know. I know he didn't. He was not a fan of what the end result was, but to me, oh my god, it just blows me away. I don't care if it's not exactly like the book. I don't care if it mushes. It goes from the end of Dune and then it kind of jumps 3 books ahead and does the ending. I don't care because it's just a beautiful, horrifying movie. It just looks beautiful and is horrible and puts the new Dune to shame. The new Dune to me was so bland and so boring and he made it, the designs just made it seem like a strange different world. I mean, the scene with the creatures that fold the space when that giant thing comes in and the guy has to speak into the translation microphone, which looks like a 30s.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then you see it pull back and it's a giant creature with the spice eyes. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, granted, Sting for me kind of brings it down a notch, his overacting in it. But Kyle MacLachlan, I just thought was great, and the I didn't mind the thoughts. I know people make fun of them talking in their heads.
Thoughts are great.
The thoughts are one of my favorite parts. I know the weirding modules are not part of the book, but I love the weirding modules. My name is a killing name, and
Mhm.
the fact that I just think the actors are great in it. To me, it just captured the weirdness of Dune and the political intrigue of Dune. It was just much more. I don't know. The new ones are so flat compared to David Lynch's, and I know people just love them. Blah, they're more like the book and da da da. But I don't care. I'm going to put it. That's something I mean, I've watched that movie so many times. I can't. I've lost count. And so it's its own thing. It's its own. I mean, it is David Lynch's Dune. It's not Frank Herbert's. It's not. It's his Dune. And so I just love it. I love the look of it.
Deep.
We got a hat trick.
Okay.
It's my number 3 as well. For everything you just said, and the absolute look of the thing.
Yeah.
It has that like extravagant cheapness.
Yes.
That I just love. I love I know there's stories about here we go. not the David Lynch version.
No.
What would the David Lynch cover look like?
Right. Oh, it'd be Baron Harkonnen floating.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
But like, it's just like I said, the overall look of the thing. I love the matte paintings, which I know were supposedly because the budget was shot or something, so they had to make these cheap matte paintings. But if I remember right, isn't it it's a De Laurentiis movie, isn't it?
I believe so.
I think it was.
Which that's a De Laurentiis movie.
Yeah.
It's just the overall look of it. Dune's one of those movies that when it's on, like I'll watch it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Doing my laundry or whatever, if it's on, I'll sit there. And we have quoted that movie
To death. It's
There's so much
forever ingrained in my
There's so much
personality.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, and I love how each planet is so distinctly designed. I mean, Giddy Prime is just crazy, and the Baron is just this. I mean,
Mhm.
the sores and he just goes for the body horror,
Yeah.
which I know is his thing. And so to me, like the new one where the guy's just sitting in some black oil,
Right.
boring.
Well, that kind of gets back to what you were saying about, and guys were talking about good directors bringing out great performances. Like
Yeah.
Charles Durning, and that like man, like he just totally goes for
Oh,
it in
yeah.
that role, and like Lynch is like, yep, you just do it, man, and just he totally nails it.
And the starter car were frightening. I mean, when they land at the end of the movie, they're just there to kill. And the starter car in the new movie, I thought were boring as just boring.
Who's that man?
My number 2 is Twin Peaks, because I have a lot of good memories of it. That was, man, when I was in college, that there were parties, Twin Peaks viewing parties,
Mhm.
and like you'd go there and there'd be coffee and donuts and cherry pie, and like everyone was just riveted. And
How was the coffee though?
it was damn fine.
Okay.
And the like everyone would talk about like you saying it was the lost of its time. That's such a great way to put it.
Mhm.
Like no one knew what was going on.
Right.
Everyone was trying to figure out that mystery, um and just like yeah, TV hadn't really seen anything like that.
No.
And I think in many ways, like I think that was an ABC show if I remember right.
Yep.
And they didn't know how to cope with like
Yeah.
man, this is far more successful than we thought.
Yeah.
And it's so weird. Like, what do we even do with this show? And just all the stuff behind the scenes of Suburbia, the quirky characters, and how you had like one thing I love that he does in a lot of his in Twin Peaks and his films is you know he takes weird characters and puts them in just completely normal situations.
Mhm.
And he takes normal people and puts them in weird situations.
Yeah.
And he loves both and puts both in the same movies. And how they like see, okay, let's just mix this and see what happens. And just the stories of how he would direct and like give people like really interesting directions, like, okay, you're a doll in a dream, or like, I want you to like, there's a box of snakes in the middle of the road, and like, or like, what? Just imagine that as you're walking, like, because that's what he's picturing. Like that's how you're gonna feel. But yeah, Twin Peaks, it was just, and there were so many, parodies of it, well, Kyle MacLachlan was on Saturday Night Live. They did like a fairly like famous parody of it, and again, it spawned so many things, and eventually, they brought it back.
Yeah.
25 years later, like linking to the very last episode,
Yep.
and it was man, just and all the others like how like Bob, the evil ghost man,
Oh, yeah.
that was like a complete accident.
Yeah.
Like he was accidentally caught in a shot, and Lynch was like, "No, leave that." Like, okay, you're gonna be this like ghost man thing who like lives in a doorknob or whatever.
Yeah.
Or, like it's like and he like, yes, let's do that. And just that's my number 2 because it was
Well,
just,
and I always thought, they give credit to The Sopranos and David Chase for creating prestige TV. But I'm sorry, there would be no Sopranos, dream sequences, surrealism without Twin Peaks.
oh for sure.
There's no way. Twin Peaks started prestige television.
Yeah.
Well, even
It just took a while for everyone to catch up.
Yeah.
when you were talking about Northern Exposure
Yeah.
earlier, Northern Exposure was ahead of its time in that they kind of had an ongoing storyline running with some of the characters, but Twin Peaks was an ongoing storyline.
Correct.
So yeah, I'm a firm believer. It was probably the first prestige. If we're wrong, let us know in the comments.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, David Chase, there's no way Sopranos would have ever been made had not Twin Peaks come along first.
Yeah. Well, my number 2 is Twin Peaks.
Oh, okay.
And I remember watching it in the 90s. A friend of mine at school turned me on to it. So we watched it every week.
Sorry.
I just remember it being so weird and bizarre, but in a really interesting way. Like, there had to be some meaning behind all this. I wasn't sure what it was. And I'm still not really sure what it was, but I like the fact that the Kyle MacLachlan character, he was what was he, an FBI agent, but he uses all these weird kind of like not supernatural, but I don't know, new age, ways of figuring things out. Like you had people throwing, I can't remember what it was now. He had people throwing stuff at a board or something to
That's right.
yeah. And then he somehow figured something out. People kind of thought of it as a soap opera, but it was miles above. Not that I'm putting down soap operas,
Oh, feel free, except for telenovelas. Then we got to fight.
Yeah.
Well, or when Days of Our Lives went batshit, when it had Marlena possessed by a devil. Yeah, so no, it got a little Twin Peaksy.
Or Passions was definitely influenced by it.
Yeah.
Well, okay, man, just like a quick sidebar session. Like, do you think Dark Shadows influenced Twin Peaks at all? From the soap opera,
yeah, from the soap opera,
like the occult soap opera kind of thing, with occult touches.
What do you kids at home think? Let us know down
in the comments.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just one of the most interesting creative TV shows I've ever seen. I think.
Oh yeah.
My number 2 would be Eraserhead. I watched it this week because I hadn't seen it in a long time, and so it's just it. I have anxiety, and it makes it's to me the entire movie is about anxiety because it just makes your anxiety go through the roof as you're watching it. Just the fact that there's never a moment of silence in that movie ever. He purposely did the whole soundscape like that. So if it's not industrial noises, it's storms, it's rain, it's the baby crying, it's the buzzing of the radiator. I mean, the poor guy's on vacation. There is no vacation in this hellscape that he lives in. And
it's like Mr. Twiddle.
Yeah. He really and I just that baby and I've read about it this week. So I guess he was pissed at H.R. Geiger for a while because he felt like the alien that comes out of people's stomach at the beginning was a ripoff of his baby in Eraserhead. So at first he didn't want to work with Geiger. He thought he'd ripped him off.
Wow.
I guess they worked it all out later, but that for practical effects, that baby was something else. And just the fact that it's there's so much you can see in later Lynch stuff, like all the seeds are right there in that movie. And so and trying to explain that one, like I said, to me, it's just more of it's just anxiety. It's just about, he's anxious about being a father. He's anxious about sex. He's anxious about, he doesn't seem, I never kind of believed he was actually on vacation from work. I always felt like in the movie he was fired because it just didn't, he had his little pocket protector. He'd always put his coat on and his pocket protector was there. But I was like, is he really on vacation or did he get fired? Because it just seems like that would make more sense that he got fired. But the whole movie and then the scene in the kitchen where he's cutting up the chicken, like, oh my God, it's just, it really is a horror movie in many ways. And it reminds me, like, I could almost do like a night of do Nosferatu, do the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and then do this movie. It'd be like a triple shot of just black and white surreal, black and white surreal horror, So No Eraserhead. It's I think as I've gotten older, that's gone way up on my list, just because
I heard an interview with Bill Hader talking about it, and he said almost exactly what you said. He said, "I saw that movie and I thought, oh, this is a movie about a guy who's afraid of getting married and having kids, which Lynch was going through at the time." So the anxiety, like you said,
and I think being an adult and a parent and everything, now the anxiety makes a lot more sense. That whole why can't I get my baby to stop crying? I just can't. They can't. Both he and the girlfriend cannot figure it out.
The trick is NyQuil.
No, not with here because the baby won't eat anything. That's the whole it won't eat. But and then just the fact that when he cuts the gauze. Anyway, I don't want to. You haven't seen it, I don't want to ruin it. But it's gone way up on my list as I've gotten older.
I think at the moment, dang near every Lynch movie is on Max.
Your number 2,
as I'm on my second. Pabst Blue Ribbon.
That's right.
My number 2 is Blue Velvet. I worked with this older lady back when I was a kid, and one day she's like, "Tell me about movies." She said, "I don't like movies. I don't like movies where I can figure out what's going on." I'm like, "Well, that sounds cool." She goes, "Well, if you want to see a movie that you have no idea what's going on, even when it's over, go rent Blue Velvet." And she wasn't wrong. The thing about that movie, everything we talked about is true, but that movie like awakened my love for Dennis Hopper.
Mhm.
I mean, I went back, and if he was in a movie, kind of like when I went through my William Holden phase.
Yeah.
If I found a movie he was in, I watched it. I think I watched Easy Rider after I watched Blue Velvet.
Me too.
Yeah, same.
Because
me too.
for that
Yeah.
very reason, I would find anything.
That's why we went and saw True Romance.
Yeah.
I mean, because he was in it.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah.
Boy, was he in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, Blue Velvet is my number 2.
The Black Sabbath parody band Max Sabbath, during their shows, they do a tribute to Blue Velvet.
Oh,
where they where Ronnie Osborne, the clown lead singer,
Ronnie Osborne.
he gets poured a Heineken through a giant McDonald's straw. And then he asks the employee of the month, like, "What kind of beer did you give me?" And he says, "Heineken." And then everybody yells, "Heineken!" And then he lip syncs it Roy Orbison's In Dreams with the microphone, and the rest of the band is dancing out. The first time I saw them, I've seen them twice, and they've done it both times. I just lost it, and you could tell there were only a few people in the audience who knew the reference, and like you could just see me and a few other people just losing it. And after they finished, they just stop and they just Ronnie just goes, "Well, that's weird." It's in the show.
Yeah, and
so fun.
and his that In Dreams, that shit's indelible.
Oh yeah,
that whole scene is just perfection.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're like and Dean Stockwell just like just runs with that, and man, just
it's like we've all been in a car ride that we just wanted to end, and it never ended, and that's what that movie is to me.
Yes.
It's a car ride that never ends.
Yeah.
No, why, man?
Well, my number one's Mulholland Drive.
Yeah.
I love that movie. I saw that in the theater and was just blown away by it. And part of the reason I love it is, like I mentioned earlier, that's both like it's a love letter to Hollywood from him, and also like his takedown of a lot of the Hollywood system and how it and what it become, love letter to what it had been, and kind of like a little smack to what it had become. And it's just and that was based on a pilot for a TV show.
That's right.
And,
I forgot about
so like wow, what would that have been? But it's like all the performances are just excellent in it, and there are all these little tributes in it to different types of filmmaking. There's the film noir. There's like little tributes to like old like Tom Mix Western movies, because there's this mysterious cowboy character who shows up now and then. I contend like there's tributes to porn in it, the adult film industry. There's tributes to giallo, horror movies, monster movies. Like there's all this stuff that he weaved into this wild story that again like leaves you kind of like, okay, what is happening here? But if you pay attention, it's like, okay, yeah, this does actually make sense.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that just blew my mind when I saw that movie. So and I've read some people consider that his masterpiece. I'm not sure you could choose what his masterpiece is, really.
No.
But that's my favorite because just blew me away.
And Naomi Watts did a tribute yesterday, and she's like, I guess it was a terrible time in her life, had gone to tons of things, had been rejected, and she's like, and then this man comes along and again makes my entire career.
Oh, he was
me
like
on the map.
He was like a mentor.
Yeah.
She's in Rabbits.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we were talking earlier tonight about why casting actors in the same movies. He did.
Oh yeah,
he did a lot of
He
that. I mean, he had a crew that followed him along. So
yeah, it's true.
And I just saw this recently. I didn't know about it, but getting back to the whole his love of old Hollywood and movies in general was I just learned he was cast as John Ford in Meet the Fablemans,
Oh,
the autobiographical movie that Steven Spielberg made about himself.
okay.
There's a scene in the end where apparently this, and I saw an interview with Spielberg. This really happened. He met John Ford when he was like 20 or 21, if that,
Mhm.
and had like this short conversation with him about movies. And Spielberg cast David Lynch to play John Ford,
Wow.
and it's genius. It's so fun to watch him play John Ford and like give young Steven Spielberg.
Hmm.
And so it's very
Oh.
like holding in on stuff. Here's David Lynch giving Spielberg in a movie Spielberg is directing advice on how to direct movies. As John Ford, it's like whoa! It's again, it's Lynchian.
Surreal. Yeah, surreal. Talk about surreal.
It's-
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, my number one is Blue Velvet.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm not. I remember watching it the first time, and it's just. It's really kind of hard to explain.
Yeah.
That's everything we've talked about.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird, which is a David Lynch thing, but it's seedy. It's really, I mean, like you were saying about that other movie, it's kind of gives you a feeling of anxiety,
Mm.
and it's got that sort of what lies behind, the
Mhm.
veil type
Mhm.
of plot,
totally.
where it's just like a regular kid in a regular neighborhood, and he gets kind of exposed to this
Strange underbelly.
yeah
Excuse me.
hidden side
Found
of
an ear.
right. Dennis Hopper is wonderful in it. He's just, I mean, like you, I've loved Dennis Hopper just because of this movie,
Mhm.
and I would have loved to see Dennis Hopper in more. I mean, I know he's been in a lot of movies,
Mhm.
but I always think of Dennis Hopper. How you sometimes will cast a book or something like
Mhm.
if they made this book into a movie,
Mhm.
this or that actor would be good for that role. Dennis Hopper always comes up with me as like, yeah, Dennis Hopper would be great for for this and that.
Yeah.
In the Babe Ruth story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There you go.
No offense to Tommy Lee Jones, he'd have made a great Ty Cobb. Ty Cobb.
Oh yeah.
Tommy Lee Jones did really well too. Yeah.
That's funny, but yeah, I've quoted that movie, a million times, and I just so many scenes in that are just ingrained in they live rent free in my head.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, of course the Heineken.
Right.
Yeah.
The scene where he's hiding in the closet, and Kyle MacLachlan is hiding in the closet, and he sees Dennis Hopper come home, and it was Isabella Rossellini playing the woman, the singer, and he witnesses that bizarre. I don't know what you would call it.
Yeah.
You can say that bizarre.
No.
Now, I heard a weird thing, which is kind of funny. You know how Dennis Hopper has that breathing mask?
Mhm.
I think he's always going.
Mhm.
David Lynch originally wanted to have helium in it.
Oh.
Nice.
So Dennis Hopper would, of course,
Right.
then have that high voice.
Mhm.
Even David Lynch thought that was too weird,
Okay.
so he changed it to I don't know what was actually in it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, that movie is just one of my all-time favorite movies.
Mhm.
I really like it.
For my number one, I have just two words. Sailor Ripley.
Sailor Ripley. Sailor Ripley, you get some music on that radio this minute.
That's right. I is Wild at Heart.
Yeah.
You talked about Blue Velvet living in your head.
Mhm.
Wild at Heart and the soundtrack, which both out, lives in my head and is my entire personality is based off of many quotes from Wilder. Um, uh, to me, the fact that Lynch didn't write it, but the fact that he took what was written and just amped up the surrealism in it. And so, I mean, you had mentioned the Wizard of Oz connection, which is just great. But for me, it's good God, there's so much good stuff in that movie. I mean,
There is.
Bobby Peru. There's
that movie made me scared of Willem Dafoe.
yeah.
And he's only like 5'2".
Yeah. My favorite part of the movie, though, is when, spoilers, when the shotgun goes off and Willem Dafoe's jaw just goes flying through the air. And and the soundtrack is amazing. And the two of them, I mean, they to me, this puts like Natural Born Killers to shame. Like, this is the true, like, Americana couple kind of under the underbelly doing things. And her mother, who is played by her real mother, is just talk about scary. Talk about scary. But I also have
things we cannot quote.
No, we cannot quote on this show. No, but also, and I can't quote this either. One of my other favorite scenes is Henry Dean Stanton and Isabella Rossellini on the side of the road. That's all I can say. And that came out of nowhere, that scene.
Yeah.
And so it just, I mean, I live, eat, and breathe. I mean, how I quote it just, I don't even think about it, and I'm still quoting the movie. And so there's just so much in that movie that I've watched. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that movie, over 30 times at least. So, but I'm sure, let's go on to your number one.
Well, my number one is based on a Barry Gifford novel.
Yes, Barry Gifford novel. Yes.
It's a little movie called Wild at Heart.
Yeah.
When I tell you, it's my favorite David Lynch movie. It's also in my top 5 favorite movies of all time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There's nothing in this movie that I can't quote chapter and verse. When I saw this movie, that became my whole personality. I was trying my best to write like this movie.
Yeah.
I was writing these kind of characters. I love just it's not reality, it's surreality.
Yeah.
Because nobody acts like these people, but they do in this movie. And then I found out it was a novel, and I read the whole novel, and I'm like, there's no Wizard of Oz in this thing. Where did that come from?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, he also co-wrote. Barry Gifford co-wrote Lost Highway.
Oh, okay.
I thought you were going to say he co-wrote Wizard of Oz.
No, that would be
He invented the time machine in Lynchian fashion.
That's right.
But no, man, everything you said, that soundtrack. I was doing dishes today, and I was playing the soundtrack in the kitchen. Amy's in the living room. She's like, "Is that a soundtrack or is that somebody's playlist? Because if it's somebody's playlist, we're going through something." But that's the whole movie.
Yeah. The snakeskin jacket.
Yep.
I mean, there's so much in the movie.
And
Dog Toto.
Yep.
The guy with the arm.
And Harry Dean Stanton. There's a line about making a noir movie, and when you make a noir movie, what you have is a woman with a past and a man with no future. She was the woman with a past.
Yeah.
He was the man with no future.
Absolutely.
And it, like Blue Velvet, started a lot of Hollywood trends. Because a lot of movies were trying to make was like Love in a 45.
Yeah.
All those kind of they were almost there, but not quite there.
I think we should give a little shout out to Mel Brooks, who convinced the studio to let Lynch direct The Elephant Man.
Oh yeah.
Mel Brooks produced The Elephant Man, and he saw Eraserhead and went, "Hey, we should get that guy."
Yeah.
and,
Yep.
And it's like this little forgotten fact sometimes that Mel Brooks of all people.
Well, and apparently Lynch didn't really know what he wanted to do next, and then he heard the title, and that was enough for him.
Oh, really?
The Elephant Man, I'm in.
Just the title alone.
Yeah.
And I'd also heard, and please let us know in the comments if this is correct, but I'd heard that Lynch got offered to direct Return of the Jedi.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, he did.
Like,
there's
man,
a great story on YouTube.
man, like
yeah,
what could have been.
Yeah.
Just like,
Yeah.
yeah. There's a great video about him describing his meeting with George Lucas and going to a restaurant that only serves salad
Mm.
and trying to explain to him what a Wookiee was, and it's great.
Yeah.
Yes, I would love to see. Like, I would love to go to the alternate universe and see the David Lynch version.
Yeah.
It'd probably look a lot like Dune.
Yeah.
yeah, probably
Yeah.
would. Yeah.
Another cool, a little, just one more side note. So, apparently, Eraserhead was shown when kind of like on TV when the early cable started.
Mhm.
They showed Eraserhead. So apparently, there's a quote from Charles Bukowski where he says one of the biggest disappointments in his life is he started watching cable and saw Eraserhead. He's like, "Oh my god, this is going to be fantastic! If this is what cable TV is, it's the future." And he's like, and it never went anywhere after that.
It was never went
That was my
anywhere
high
after
point.
that.
Oh wow.
Cable.
Yeah.
And so I found that quote today. I thought that was interesting.
That is great.
Yeah.
So here's a little toast to
Yeah.
David Lynch. He will be sorely missed
Yep.
on our theater screens for
And-
sure.
Mhm.
An ineffable American
You know,
original.
Yeah, that's right.
how else how am I going to know what the number of the day is?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sure. Yeah, yeah.
I just
I think you just found your YouTube channel.
There you go.
There you go, yeah. That's great. Yeah.
Mike's number of the day.
Or the weather. Tom Skilling retired.
Oh, yeah.
Terry Taft is dead.
It's wide
More
open.
weather. Yeah.
There you go.
Someone could claim the weather. You
Mhm.
know.
All right. Well, on that note, just like at the beginning, I'm Paul,
I'm Mark.
I'm Mike.
I'm Nick.
and this has been the return of the son of the show.